what are we doing here today?
Absolutely. Well, it's a big pleasure to finally meet the both of you. So I'm sitting with Luz and David, and we met like almost 5 years ago online in a online program created by our common friend Philippe Greyer. And that's where we started to connect, and I heard about Luz's passion to change education. And shortly after, you started to create your dream project. And what happened in a short overview since 2018, since we met?
I think since I'm in the middle, maybe you can hold the mic.
It's okay. I speak? So what happened? So many things have happened. So first of all, I wasn't really, when I met you, I was already convinced that I wanted to do that project. And since then, we started organizing, connecting with many people. You help us a lot in connecting with that many people around the world. And it was like, okay, let's go and capture how different people around the world are transforming education. And we started in Jordan, Israel, Mongolia, China, Nepal, India. We kept going through Asia, and our minds kept being blown away every time that we meet someone new. It was like, wow. I guess that at the beginning we were just exploring inside the alternative spectrum of the education, like even the most traditional ones, like Montessori and Waldorf. But then a little bit more, we got to understand how democratic schools work. Then we went a little bit more and learned about agile learning centers, and even we got to meet people that didn't go to school. And it was like all
schooling or nature as in a school. I think that journey really transformed us because even though we were studying education and how we can learn, how we learn is how we live. And it really triggered us to question many ways in which we live ourselves, the way that we communicate with people, the way that we see life, and the trust that we put into life and the things that we do. After seeing so many possibilities in education, it was absolutely inspiring, but it was also very heartbreaking that most people don't even know about the possibilities, don't know what's possible, and how hard it seems to even imagine a different way of learning, and also creating learning spaces where children can really develop their potential and their dreams, and where we can reimagine how a society can be. Because really these schools that are doing things in dramatically different ways, they are places for experimentation of how we can live in more just and sustainable ways. And they allow the space for young people to start thinking by themselves how they would like to live and what kind of communities and society they would like to live into. And that's completely different from the education that I have experienced myself, which is mostly about how can I learn this really tiny square of knowledge to fit in another really tiny square of society, because that's the only thing that it seems that you can do, fit into tiny squares that have already been predefined, but without changing anything.
Yes, so you're stepping in a completely new field on the one hand, and I know from both of you that you both have a background in, let's say, classical careers. What was the drive for the two of you to really step out of this classical career?
Yeah, for me it was really clear. It was really clear because I was really unhappy. I think that was the main thing. So I studied. I got really good marks. So I was supposed to study something that was super hard. Then I studied biotechnology, which it's science. It's really interesting. It's like curiosity driven, no? So that was okay. But then when I started working, I saw how I was completely isolated from the rest of the world, and it was like, is this really my passion? I mean, it's interesting, but that doesn't mean I want to spend every day of my life doing that. So every time I could, I was working in a small biotech and then running away to the first place I ran away was to Peru, and I was working in a school there, and it was like, wow, this is just amazing. There was the first realization of, hey, I thought that most people live like I live, and apparently only 20% of the world live in the conditions I live. 1 second. Then I went back to the UK and looked for another job because I mean I was supposed to keep doing that thing. So I started working in AstraZeneca, and again, first is like it's a new learning environment, learn many things. But once that you get used to it, it was like, okay, again, I don't feel I want to spend my life doing this. And David was all the time like, are you gonna, if you will have all the money in the world, what would you do? And I was like, maybe I'll create a school. I was like, why don't you start working in that passion? So I left actually I decided to study a master to be a teacher. And that was like really sad, because like the methodologies that they were teaching me were exactly preparing kids for the same situation I was, to be completely lost in life. It was like I didn't found my way through the educational system, and now I'm gonna be a piece towards the same thing.
So was this somehow like the turning point in your thoughts, that education must work in a different way than we are used to?
Yeah, that was the starting of the possibilities, to see the possibilities, because then I did the research. I have to do a thesis, so it was like, okay, I'm gonna learn now. Like they are not teaching me, like they are only teaching me this thing. I'm sure there are other many things. So that is when I did the thesis into alternative methodologies in education, and found out that there were many things that I could try. But then when I started trying in the class, I couldn't. I was like, I want to do it differently, and pretty much I end up doing the same. It was like a PowerPoint presentation. So it was like, oh, this is not it either. But the fear was still there. Like I had that thing of, should I not go back again to science? And it was in my second runaway in Guatemala, when I was working in an orphanage in the middle of the jungle, that I realized that, well, I didn't realize it. There was the story I told you the other day. I met this former soldier from the US Army that was there playing with kids, and he was like, what are you doing here? Like, I don't understand, how were you in the army and now you're here? And he told me that during all his life, he was really a coward, and he thought that by joining the army he would be a brave person and all their fears would be overcome. So I thought, did you get it? That actually that works that way? And he was like, no, fear never disappears. It's always gonna be there. You just have to accept that it's part of the process. And that's okay. I'm gonna because at that time I was forming the idea of traveling around the world and interviewing people that were doing transformative things. But when I met this guy, it was like, I don't have other option. I really want to do that.
When we talk about fear, you, David, you also left a very well-paid job in the pharma industry. And what was your point of fear you had to leave?
So it's interesting, because I left, but the fear kept coming with me in a way until still, I guess I still have fear of many things. But I left not necessarily running away from something, but running towards something. And I was running towards life, towards the possibilities of life, I feel. So to summarize early career, so I guess since very little I always liked to study. In a way, I became to believe that I was my marks, and therefore I needed to have the best marks, and I always excelled at pretty much every level of university and so on. I got a scholarship to go to Cambridge University. I developed projects that went all the way to the MIT when I was at the second year of university, even studying biotechnology, and later on business at Cambridge. And ended up in this pharmaceutical company in leadership positions, creating new research units and being promoted pretty much every year. And I was quite excited about it, because obviously all the change, all the responsibility I got, and all the innovation that I was involved into. But the more I kept progressing into this career, this success career, the more I realized that a lot of the things, all the energy, all the creativity, all my efforts, I didn't see that they were really having the impact that I wanted to have. I felt that a lot of the work that I was putting was lost into political decisions that ended up pretty much on people growing their egos and their feeling of power, on big deals being made with lots of zeros in between rich people that just became richer, and not necessarily was driven by how can we make the world a better place, in this case in healthcare. And at the same time I started exploring, well, can there be things differently? And I found some books like from Mohamed Yunus, founder of Grameen Bank, about social entrepreneurship and impact projects, and about how people were using their skills in building organizations and in innovation for a social mission. But all that was very beautiful, and I was getting involved as mentors in incubation programs and things like this, like on the side of my job. But it was tremendously difficult for me to live it, because it felt like I was on this track record, and that if I jump out of that boat, then suddenly I would lose all that I had been building all my life. Like all my self-esteem was based on that little title that was in my business card, and that I could put on my CV and on LinkedIn. So how to live all of that? Luz was in this moment of questioning herself as well, what she wanted to do. So it was these two questioning things, and then a third element was the death of my father. And he was 49, and he had a heart attack while cycling. He wasn't the healthiest person in the world, but he wasn't neither really unhealthy or anything like this, but his life just stopped in a second. And beyond the loss that it was for my family, for my mother and my sister, at the beginning I just focused on working, on keep on doing and doing and doing, not to think too much about it. But then it became this question of what if that would happen to me as well. Like it's my father, I'm the person that resembles the most to him. Like every time I go back to my village, everyone tells me the same thing, you look exactly like your father. And I see my hands, it's where I see my father the most. They really are the same shape, let's say. And I asked that to myself, what will happen if my life will finish, maybe not tomorrow, but in a year from now? Will I change anything? And I thought I would regret not following that dream that we had of exploring the world and learning how we could contribute to making it a better place. Even if it was something very vague, we didn't have very well defined what we wanted or anything, but I would have regretted not taking that step forward. So we did it.
Well, I mean, thank you so much for sharing, and this story shows how important it is that we think about that life has an end, and that we never know when this end is coming for us. And on the other hand, it shows that we always can regard death as a mentor for ourselves to keep us on track on the ways or dreams we are aiming for. And as I know your story a little bit, I know you were supposed to travel a lot, but suddenly you ended up in a place like Mexico. How came that?
So yeah, we were traveling and learning, and then COVID happens, of course, and we didn't want to believe it at the beginning very much. So we were in Spain, and we were like, no, we're going to continue with our journey. We took a flight to cross the Atlantic to El Salvador. We were on that flight crossing the Atlantic at the time that the World Health Organization named COVID as a global pandemic. And El Salvador was the first country that closed their borders to Europeans. And we learned about that at the El Salvador's border. And we were reported to the US. Deported. And imagine what it is to arrive to the US being deported from El Salvador, from a global pandemic that is still the people at the border, the policemen didn't exactly know what was happening. It was a little bit of a chaos, but finally they told us that we could enter the airport and leave with a plane as soon as possible. We thought of whether going back to Spain, whether falling a little bit on that fear of, oh my God, we need to protect ourselves, or whether trusting that something good will happen. And lots of countries were closing their borders. Mexico was still there, and was in our plan, so we went to Mexico. Things started closing down as well. So we looked for somewhere where to volunteer, not to spend all our savings into just being locked in a hostel. And we ended up in this in a little village in the Pacific coast of Mexico, in a place called Puerto Escondido, in an eco-construction project, building adobe houses during the morning, and in the afternoon we found ourselves with lots of time to analyze and reflect on all the learnings that we had along that year around the world. And it was amazing. On the one hand, because we have that physical connection with nature and with other volunteers and so on, and then this explosion of realization of, oh my God, this is amazing, all the things that we capture.
Yeah. It was once that we started watching things, it was like, wait 1 second, this is super amazing. At the beginning, we thought about creating a movie to tell more or less the learnings that we got through the process. But then it was when we started creating the movie, and it was like, wait, but we have 150 people, and we only have 1 hour apparently to make a movie. So it was like, what else can we do with this information that when we analyzed it and went through it, it was like, if teachers in the schools start using these things in the classes, I think education can change.
Because not just education, but
the world can change, because like the things that they were saying of that change of taking responsibility of your own learning, and then you take responsibility of your own life, that's superpower.
And when we say these things of taking responsibility, it feels like something very individualistic, but actually it is a learning space where you need to reach agreements with all the other people that are part of it. And that's an incredible, valuable learning and skills to have that almost none of us have. Like even if you are in a flat, in a building with lots of flats, and you need to agree with the rest of the neighbors on anything, on paying a bill, on whatever it is. It's always a chaos, there's always conflict. Imagine since you are little, you're actually co-creating and negotiating how to learn together, how each of you can follow your interests and passions and learn how to do that, and collaborating in those processes. It will really transform how we see each other, rather not just as individuals that can have our own dreams, but also as a network of people that can support each other to achieve that.
So COVID actually forced you to create a new way in your life, and you're living in Mexico now. And as far as I learned, you're enjoying it very much there. And what are your plans for the future? What projects are you currently working on, and what would support you most on your journey?
Maybe just something more to say about living in Mexico, or anywhere really, that I think we wanted after when the pandemic started being a bit more relaxed, the restrictions and so on, we wanted to continue traveling. But then when we started doing that, we realized that our dream had changed. And this is something important, I think, for everyone to realize, that your dream doesn't need to be the same all the time. So now we were more passionate about sharing this collective global wisdom with everyone, that about keeping traveling and learning from more people, even though now we still do it once in a while. But what are we doing with all of that?
What are we doing with that? So we have a secret plan to change the world. It's not really secret. We are trying to make people to collaborate with more people, and the ideas that come to us are endless, really. Like, I think that there is a lot to be done in awareness, like trying to have new conversations. I think that one thing that we were thinking to do is through those documentary short movies, keep having dialogues and keep planting seeds that whenever they flourish, they will flourish. But that's a starting point to have a conversation, and then you can do and start taking your own decisions whenever you decide what you want to do. That's like the awareness process. Then the other thing is making the transition in the mindset, because you can give the teachers all the tools that there are in the world, but if the mindset is not to create a horizontal structure in which everyone can participate, that's not going to make a change, because that's
in a way I think that we are aware of a lot of people are aware of the challenges of employment, of automation, of climate change, social and environmental regeneration, and also of mental health that we have right now. So I think lots of people want that change. I think we have lots of tools and lots of examples of things that already work. But it is very hard for a lot of us to make that transition because we have never seen or experienced any other kind of learning centers than the one that we have been into as children and the ones that we continue creating as adults, which are pretty much the same. So we found that traveling around the world and seeing different things really can help you to change your mind. So how to democratize the access to that transformational experience at a low cost. And what we did was to design an online learning experience, the learning expedition we call it, where we take people through that journey of personal and professional transformation by connecting with their values, their purpose, getting inspired by that diversity of perspectives, and then supporting them to make little experiments and find out what works in their context. And this is something I think something that moves us a lot, and is that the diversity is beautiful, and that there's not a single way to change schools or education to make them fit for the present and for the future, and that we want to enable people to find ways that work for their communities, for their cultures, and that this diversity can keep on flourishing.
Yeah.
Yeah, we are in the age of collaboration, and
Yes.
I think that's what we all need now. And who should get in contact with you? Who are the persons you are addressing most?
So we really work with a lot of different people. Well, at the moment, I guess we are a lot of interested on people that understand what we're talking about, that there's a need for that change, and that have access to communities or networks of educators or schools or learning centers and want to support those people to make the transition. Because we work with a lot of innovators that are either creating new learning centers or transforming existing schools. So we work with those people a lot. And we're just starting some new collaborative projects to bring our resources together with other people's resources so that we can support even better anyone that wants to create change within the system to make it happen. Because we find that's even harder than creating a new school because of that change of mindset needs to happen across the school and in the structures and in many places. So we're collaborating in that direction. I would say any educator that wants to see what's possible, we're here to support them. And anyone that want to bring that change to their ecosystem, we're here to help them as well.
Do you want to share maybe some inspiring examples you met on your way? Just to give the spectators an idea what is possible already out there in the world.
It's possible. I really like Abji's example. I think that he blew my mind when we met him. So Abji he started Project Defy, and which is defying education for yourself, and he created spaces where there are tools and materials, and then there is no teachers. So people start, like the first ones that came into the community were the kids, and they started playing and doing their own projects. But then more and more people, like maybe if the kids didn't know how to do something, they called their grandfather and their mom, and they started working together. And I think it's not only about the projects that they are developing, which are helping them to discover who they are and how do they learn and what things would they like to do, but also the part in which they are connecting with each other and learning how to co-create the culture of that community. And that's beautiful, because I think like the third stage is that moment in which to decide what impact do you want to bring to the world, and in those spaces that it's happening, no?
And another person that inspires me a lot is Charlie Moreno, who is this friend from Colombia, and now he lives in Estonia. And I love his example because he's bringing a transition period for public schools. So he has created a democratic school within a public school in Tallinn, in the capital of Estonia. And I guess for people to understand what a democratic school is if we were to design a school in a democratic manner, then all the people that are involved in the center will be part of the decision making, and their voices will count. And that's pretty much the basis of it. Of course, there's like a national curriculum that they need to follow. There are safety guidelines. There are a lot of things that are involved in there. But if we consider each other equal in that process, then rather than simple imposition or this is how things are and that's it, we have a lot of conversations and negotiations, and there's a lot of involvement. And what he has managed to do is that for children and teenagers that were in the main part of the school that felt like they didn't fit, or they were failures of the system because they didn't have good marks, or children that were bullying or being bullied, suddenly they are not just being told that they are doing something wrong. Now they have a space where they can share what's going on with them. And whenever there's one of those conflicts, they can sit in a circle and discuss what happened for you, what happened for me, this is how I experienced it, how can we resolve this? And suddenly, like, we move from punishing to mediation and restoration. How can we create a space that is beneficial for all of us? And of course, as I mentioned, all these elements that are part of the system that we cannot control, like having a fixed curriculum or the timings of the school or something like this, these are simply things that are put in the table as something that everyone is aware of, and then we can discuss how we do it. So for instance, in their case, they agree on how the schedule is going to look like, when they're going to have more free time, when they're going to be able to develop their own projects based on their interests, which might be nothing connected with the curriculum, but now they have the space because they have the chance to ask for it. I wonder what it would have been asked of ourselves if when we were children, someone would have told us in our school, what do you want to learn about?
And I think this is a wonderful example that shows that we're all teachers and students in every single moment of our life, that learning is a lifelong journey for all of us, and that we should never stop learning, and that what we were just talking about should inspire people to reflect on that, and to keep this kind of childish mindset and this curious mindset. And also the example of Abhijit you shared, he developed his projects in India with no resources, and now more and more people got aware of it. And this is such a wonderful example how a dream can grow, how a dream can be developed, and it should inspire all the listeners or spectators of this video. And this is also nurturing your dream, that because you were also starting from scratch with your own resources, and people should know that people like you are existing, and that's why I'm so happy that we got to know and finally meet now here in Sofia. It's wonderful, and thank you so much for the conversation, and we keep developing those dreams together, and I deeply believe that your dreams matter so much, and let's see what's going to happen, and let life surprise us. Thank you so much.
and thank you for believing in us, because I think for many of us that we have those dreams and we want to do things differently, what we tend to find around us are, since the beginning, what we found was people telling us that cannot be done.
When are you going to go back to real life?
We're going to go back to real life. That's not your field. You're not working on your thing, as if, that decision that you made when you were 18 years old of a degree that needs to follow until your death. And there's very few people as visionary as you to say your dreams matter. And I believe in you. And you told us this 4.5 years ago, no? Like when we were in the process, I think, I was about to leave my job and not even there. And we really need that. We needed that then, and we still need it today, because this is just at the beginning of what it can be.
And maybe to the end you should mention the name of the program, because we didn't talk about that.
So the organization we created is Evolving Education. That's kind of a framework where there's a lot of things going on, but one key thing I invite you to check out is the Learning Expedition, because this is our key development program to discover what's possible in education.
Well, wonderful. Thank you so much. And we have an update conversation in a couple of years from now. Thank you.